Welcome, welcome. So glad you all are here. And if you're tuning in, you probably are wanting to get more done and move faster and work in a distributed way. Working remotely is new for a lot of people this week. And at Clear Measure, we are a distributed company, a software architecture company spread out all over the United States. And working remotely is in our DNA. And everyone is in a different place. We have software architects all over working from home. Some people have just a dedicated space. Some people are fortunate enough to have a completely dedicated room. It's completely different, but so many more people are learning how to work in a distributed way in a development environment. And we're going to talk about how to equip your team with a high throughput DevOps process when everyone is essentially working from home and distributed. So, yeah, I know from experience the challenges that can come from being separated by space and geography. And with us being 100% distributed, we know how to empower each person with a productive personal environment. And we also know how to integrate a team process so that the needed outcomes can happen at the pace that they need to happen with the right level of quality. But we have an enormous problem, a serious problem, and a problem that we are going to have to solve. Most teams don't have a lot of experience working in a distributed fashion. And you know it when someone has an event that causes them to work from home. And you try to integrate them, but it always feels clunky. And sometimes it's hard to tell if they're even there. And if you are the remote person, you might feel ignored because things are happening without you. Well, with more teams working in a distributed environment today, and now everyone being remote in some places, we need some proven patterns. And so in this webinar, we'll hope to equip you with some of the tools and methods that you need to work productively in a team environment, especially when every person is in a different physical space. And either at the end of today or tomorrow, we will have online a brand new course on our Empower website, a on-demand video course for a fully automated DevOps environment for remote teams. I encourage you to check that out. Now, my latest book, .NET DevOps for Azure, is out. If you would like a free ebook copy of that, just go ahead and send me an email. There's also some resources that are going to be put in the chat of this webinar, and you can find the book anywhere books are sold. Also, we have a quarterly training class, and that is scheduled for the 30th of April. And sign up for that. And that class will be delivered regardless of if everyone flies into Austin or not. But signs are good that every businesses will be back to normal at that point. We see some good data coming out, very encouraging data. Also, another resource, the Azure DevOps podcast. We talk about everything around shipping software on the Microsoft platform. We do talk about major products, Azure DevOps, Octopus Deploy, TeamCity, GitHub Actions, also the Azure Cloud, but great guests and tons of back episodes, so go there. Now, I want to talk about DevOps and level set because we're all working in a distributed fashion, but the goal is a frictionless software delivery process. And DevOps has a lot to offer in that fashion. So let's talk about DevOps as the analogy. You've all heard of what's called the DevOps pipeline. Well, there's a reason why pipeline is a really, really good metaphor. And the DevOps pipeline can be thought of as a water pipeline. We want smooth flow, and we want to filter out impurities. Now, in a pipeline, we can't send down a tidal wave of water all at the same time because there's a certain diameter of the pipe. At the same time, it's not useful to have no water flowing through the pipeline. So the DevOps pipeline changes our thinking from from the Scrum sprint perspective, where you have this batch in a sprint where you push through a lot of things, and then you stop this, and then you start again, and then you stop, start, stop, start, stop, start. Even if you're doing weekly sprints, it still pushes you to stop, start, stop, start. DevOps is a lot more akin to the Kanban style of work, where you want a smooth flow. And if you've already taken your sprints down to 1 week, then you're probably closer to smooth flow than you think. But for people doing 2-week sprints or 3-week sprints or 4 weeks, you want to think about shrinking your sprints. And then the sprint ceremony, the boundary starts to become less important, and you organically start to move to a continuous flow model where you can build at any time, deploy at any time. The software is stable at all times. So let's talk about the metaphor of this pipeline. And your source control, we'll talk about later. The source control is the headwaters of the pipeline. Any changes in the version control system are going to flow through the pipeline, and the customers are at the other end. So a pipeline carries water, and we want clean, pure water to get to our customers. And we want there to be a consistent water pressure, a consistent flow. We can't push through a tidal wave of water all at the last minute, and an empty pipeline with no water does nobody any good. So we need a continuous flow. Now, there's two things that we want to measure. We want to measure productivity, which is throughput. So think about that as water pressure, the gallons per minute. That's throughput. That's our team's productivity, is how much water is consistently flowing, how much software change, new features are consistently flowing through. And then we also want quality. If dirt is getting through, bacteria is getting through in the water, well, then that's bugs. That's dirty water. And so we want to put filters in that pipeline every step of the way to filter out the impurities. And so that leads us to put in place quality control methods, tests, inspections, static code analysis. Every step of the way that pushes water down needs to be coupled with a filter, with a quality control. And we don't want to just do a whole bunch of stuff, put a whole bunch of water, and then put a whole bunch of filters at the end, because the water is just going to back up and it's going to trickle through. We want to have filters every step of the way distributed throughout. Okay, so that's a powerful metaphor. Now, let's talk about, just even before we get into the technical bits, remote environment, how to set up an individual developer and your development team for a remote environment. And just to level set, these are the types of things that you're going to have to do in this work environment. You're going to have to make design decisions before you even touch the code. That's the 4 types of design decisions that happen before anyone can put their hands on a keyboard. And then there's specific ways to structure the version control system so that the frictionless environment. There are ways to build the 2 different types of builds that you need. Your full system testing, how to do user experience testing against a user experience design, executing your production release, and then observing your software in production. Those are the 4 things that you need to equip yourselves with high level. Obviously, this webinar isn't going to be able to go into all 7 of those. We've done a 7-part webinar series that's available on our Empower website, empower.clearmeasure.com, that you can find. But with more people working from home remotely than ever before, every person needs an environment to not only focus on work, but also one where it's easy to collaborate with their team. And there's 2 capabilities. One is the individual focus, the environment, and then the other is the process made up of nested cycle times. And you can analyze your own team's process in terms of these cycle times. That's the image on the right. The code, the inner cycle, and I call this onion DevOps because it's an onion. It's concentric circles, it's layers. But the inner cycle is the developer code cycle, where we type code and modify code and make commits and make a change, run it, make a change, run it, make a change, run it. And then the end of that cycle is submitting a pull request back to our team. The team cycle, the next layer out, is taking multiple pull requests and promoting or vetting a pull request, and possibly multiple, and producing a release candidate in a manual test environment to promote up to the next cycle, which is the product cycle, whatever product management capability our company is operating. In that cycle, of course, they're prioritizing what features to feed into the team next, but they are vetting those release candidates to see and ask the question, can I sell this? Is this ready to go to the customers? Then it goes to the customers who use it. They, of course, are asking for new capabilities all the time, but they're using it in the real world. And the next level up is the support cycle, where something happens and one of the customers needs support, and we need a quick trip around that cycle to get a solution back to them. And so we need to think about what we're doing in all of those cycles, how long it's taking, and how to make it faster. And the inner cycles are going to spin multiple times for every instance of the next cycle outward. So we're going to have multiple changes to the code for every build that our team produces for the product management capability at our company. We also need, let's turn to the productive work environment. Now the picture, you have the baby on the lap, and you're trying to get work done, sitting in the middle of the kitchen. It's going to be a traffic area. Now, obviously, it's going to be really hard to concentrate, and so that's going to be really important. So let's dig into that. Now, not everybody is going to have a dedicated home office, and it is perfectly okay. Obviously, the picture on the top right is a really nice desk setup in a dedicated corner, lots of monitors, lots of space, and that's great. But we've seen productive environments in as little as a 4-foot desk, 4 foot by 2 foot space. But we'll go into why you need 2 monitors as well. But you want to find a space where you can either be alone or be not interrupted. And with a lot of schools that are closed or temporarily suspended, my kids are on spring break, so they were going to be home anyway. But if you have the luxury of having a dedicated room or a spare bedroom, or even a walk-in closet where it doesn't have to be full of clothes, some type of dedicated space. And if you don't have a dedicated room, you can create a dedicated space by purchasing and just setting up room dividers. So visually you are in a separate space. And that can also help with your psyche, because you will feel like, oh, when I am here, when I am over in this corner, separated by this wall divider, I am at work. I'm not in my living room or in my bedroom. There are some people with 1-room efficiency apartments where you just have to take a corner of the room, put a wall divider up, and now you are at work. So think about your physical space. You need some type of dedicated physical space that's quiet where you can work. Now, let's talk about the bare basics, because we're all video conferencing. Now at ClearMeasure, we've been doing that for a long time. Everything is done through video conferencing. Even our company staff meeting with everybody in the company, it's a big video conference. But the bare basics, you obviously have your computer. We're all software developers, and you need a internet connection, a camera, microphone, and a speaker. Those are kind of your tickets to the game for video conferencing. But that's just getting started. Let's talk about things to think about. You need a solid wired internet connection. Now, if you're a network expert and you have curated your wireless connection and measured it and you know what you're doing, great, that's perfect. But you need a solid low latency internet connection. And for most people, instead of trying to diagnose why Wi-Fi kind of is erratic, just plug in the wire. And if the cable modem or internet source doesn't come into the proper room in your house, oftentimes you can call the internet provider and they'll come in and they'll actually run a wire through your walls and move the source to the camera, to the room that you need to. So you really want to pay attention to that internet connection and the latency, and measure the latency. You can measure the latency with trace RT or ping. Next, you want a high definition webcam, a high quality webcam. All webcams are not made the same. The Logitech C920 is a good go-to. It's so good that it is sold out right now. Last time I checked this morning on Amazon, but the Logitech Brio is a little bit more expensive. It has a good tracker, good reputation. I actually like the Razer Kio the best out of the commodity webcams. It was actually designed for gamers that stream over Twitch, and so it has a built-in light ring that you can light up your face, turn it on and off. But the picture on it is crystal clear, absolutely crystal clear. Now, the next is your headset and speakerphone. The Logitech H390 or the Logitech Clear Chat, that's going to be a good inexpensive one. Don't spend more than $35 on a USB headset with a boom microphone. I'm actually going to give you an Amazon list where you can buy all the recommended stuff in a little bit. But also the Jabra Speak 510 is a really good one. It's a really good USB speakerphone. The 510 also has Bluetooth connectivity, so you get 2-in-1. You can it's a good speakerphone for your smartphone as well. The Jabra Speak 410 is just wired USB. The 510 adds on Bluetooth capability, and then the 710 is a little bit bigger, meant for 4 to 6 person conference rooms. It can kind of fill the room, and it has a more sensitive microphone. You also want to have multiple monitors, and we'll talk about that later. One monitor is for your work, and the other screen is for communications. So if you have a laptop, you're going to need a docking station because you're going to have more USB devices than you're used to, and you're going to need that connectivity. And also, you don't want to be hunched over that keyboard. You want to have an external keyboard and mouse so that you have good ergonomics. All right. All right, let's talk about tools a little bit. There's communication tools, and then there are DevOps tools. We are in the custom software space. We work to equip our client teams all the time, and a lot of times we're talking about architecture and automated deployments and cloud environments and all that. But situating a team for distributed development is just as important, and there's some DevOps tools to think about there. But let's talk about communication first, because regardless of what we're doing, we need to be able to communicate well. So the first concept to set up as a team is a video war room, and I do mean that. And you know what? Any of these video telephony tools is going to be able to work on a small scale. Once you get more than 4 people that are constantly communicating, then Google Hangouts and Microsoft Teams start to be a less desirable solution from a video perspective than Zoom. I think Zoom is the best at multi-video. We do our company staff meetings on Zoom, and we've got yesterday we did one. We have 25 people, and everyone had a video square on the screen. And if you've got a 24-inch monitor or 27-inch monitor, those video squares are going to be just fine. You'll be able to see everybody great. But if you have a development team of 4, then any of them is going to work fine. Even Skype works fine. But you want to have a video war room. That is not just do a video stand-up and then everybody just works. No, if you're used to working in the same room, then you need to simulate the same environment that you are used to. You want to start up when you come to work in the morning, you log into the video war room, you log into the video channel, and you stay there all day. If you're in the development team, all the developers that are working together, if they were working in the same general area, even if it was just cubicles in the same area, but you could kind of get up and say, "Hey Bob, you got a second?" If that's what your work environment is, then every person needs to be in that video channel all day long. And don't worry about the internet bandwidth, it'll be just fine. But that's another reason why we have 2 monitors. We have one monitor dedicated for the work, and we have another monitor dedicated to communications. You just keep that screen up. Now, it may be more convenient if you have an Android or iPad tablet, prop that up next to your workstation and let that be the video war room portal for you. Or if you have a laptop, older laptop computer just available, boom, there you go. There's another screen where you have the video channel. And if you're doing computing and such where the video conferencing seems to use a little bit more CPU than you want, or you need all of that for your work, well then if you have a spare tablet or something, then that processing stays off to a separate CPU. If you have a desktop computer, you're not going to notice it at all. And the only way you'd notice it on the laptop computers generally is if the laptop computer starts getting hot, the fan and the thermal management can't keep up. And then when laptops get hot, the processor logic steps down the speed of the CPU, and then your computer just slows to a crawl. And you're like, man, why is this so slow? And so if you're used to using a laptop computer and now you start plugging in multiple displays and you don't have native GPU support for all of those displays, and it's actually using DisplayLink or going through a USB video, then it's going to use your CPU. It's going to get hot. Your fan in that little tiny laptop's not going to be able to keep up, and it's going to step down your speed. I pushed a Microsoft Surface Pro 6 to the max with the proper docking station, with 2 external screens, which it supports natively, and the Surface screen itself. And I'm running OBS, I'm running Zoom, and it just, CPU gets hot. That little fan in there can't get enough airflow through, and then it starts slowing to a crawl because the CPU speed gets stepped down in self-preservation because it doesn't want to overheat. So if you have a laptop, think about cooling, and you can connect a lot of stuff to these high-powered laptops, the Dell Precision laptops that have 8 CPU cores these days. They're really great, but when they get hot, all that power goes out the window because the CPU is not going to run at its full potential. So you might have get a little fan and actually blow air across that laptop to keep it cool. Now let's talk about team messaging. Microsoft Teams is good. Slack is good. There's plenty of chat. You want a team level persistent chat. You want 2 channels. You want one for work, and then you want one for the water cooler or the break room. And when you come to work in the morning and sit down at your desk, you put a message in there that says, hey, good morning, I'm here. You do it just the same. For cloud storage, you want to have you probably have this anyway, but you need a place for files. But as you're going through and putting these together, if you're not on the video war room, or if there's part of your team that's not the developers that are not just constantly engaged in that video war room, they need to be on the work chat channel, the persistent chat channel, so that you can quick tag and message them and say, hey Bob, you have a minute? And they can say yes. You throw in the video chat URL and then get on a conversation. Resist the urge to chat and have a chat conversation. It's not going to be productive. Use chat to get on video. Resist the urge to check email more often than you're used to. Don't drive conversations through email. It's not productive. You need to use video conferencing all the time. That's the best proxy for in-person face-to-face. And you're going to see their facial expressions. Just right here, you see my facial expressions and you get a lot more meaning from just telephony. And so isn't it great when you can see my eyes and moving around, and as opposed to just hearing on a cell phone? So those things are important. Now, over communicate your status. When you get there in the morning, say, good morning, I'm here. If you're heading out, if you're stepping away and going to going to lunch, going to your break room, then tell them in the chat, hey, I'm heading out for lunch in the video war room. Say it out loud. If you're leaving for the day, tell everybody, hey, have a good night. All that is normal. You want to over communicate. Okay. And so those are important. Now, I want to give you all the products that you need. If you have just brought home your laptop and that's all you have, then you can go to the URL top right. Just write it down now because obviously it doesn't say anything. a.co/FNXZWGV. I don't think it's case sensitive, but it's a capital V just in case it is. And these are the products that you need. The Asus 24-inch monitors, I think they're $118 a piece. These Asus monitors are rock solid. They are the best value for the money. And you'll also want your monitor stands. Just putting the monitors on the desk, it's going to be bad ergonomics because you're going to kind of be hunched over looking down. But right now, the center of my monitors are about my eye level. And of course, the camera is right above the monitor. But you want to put the camera, right perched at the top in the middle so that when you're talking to people, it looks as if you are looking at them. You don't want to have your camera off to the side where you're working like this and they're looking at your side. Now, over time, it's fine. But when you're actually having a conversation and conversing, just think about their experience. And make sure to put the camera or put the video conference window right underneath the camera so that when you're talking, they can see you looking at them. All right. You also want the webcam, $87 for the Razer Kiyo right now. It's available. Any boom microphone, any USB boom microphone is going to work, but you don't want to use just iPhone earbuds. They dangle around. They don't tend to work as good except when you're on an actual phone call. Okay. Now the Jabra disc, those are really great. And they're not very big either. This is essentially how big this Jabra speakerphone is. And it does a pretty good job. Okay. And if you have a dedicated space where you're not going to disturb anybody else in your house, then use the speakerphone, because then you don't have to have something on your ears all day, which over time that can irritate your ears. Also, this room divider, those room dividers are pretty valuable. If you don't have a dedicated room just for your office, then get some type of divider to subdivide the space so that you have something dedicated. And for example, if it's a corner of the bedroom, you don't want the video where your bed's in the background, if that's how you're set up. So this enables you to have a backdrop where you can have a dedicated space and just have some privacy as well, just to carve that off. Velcro strips, you're always going to want to use cable management. And then the USB hub, you are going to be connecting more things, just the camera, headset, Jabra, that's 3 right there. And so if your docking station doesn't have enough, you're going to need some more connectivity. And then of course, my book, .NET DevOps for Azure. So you can go to this Amazon list with the URL on the top right and you can get all of these items and hook yourself up. Now, those monitor stands, if you don't have a desk that has a lip on the back of your desk, then it's going to be a little bit difficult to clamp it on. There are monitor stand models that have a big base that can sit on top of the desk as well. But it's important that you raise up and hold those monitors side by side. There's even monitor stands that are higher for big and tall, compatible with stand-up desks, and even monitor stands that have 4 and 6. You can go crazy. So you want to get those monitor arms. And I remember 5 years ago, those monitor arms were like 3 times as expensive. So a lot of people make them, and the prices have really come down. Now let's talk about DevOps tools. The key categories are you need work or project tracking. You need your distributed version control system. You need your IDE. You need your builds. And you need deployment and environment provisioning, and then observability. Now, there's plenty of tools in each one, but when you're distributed it's going to put a lot more pressure on the sophistication of your project tracking tools, but not just your tools, because a lot of people use Azure boards or Jira, but it's the mechanism, it's how you have it configured. And the first way of DevOps is flow. You know, DevOps has three overarching principles: flow, feedback, and continuous learning. And you know, builds come into the feedback portion, but flow starts with tracking your work so that you can prioritize and know exactly what you're going to do. And if you don't have your 9 columns properly set up on your Kanban board, then bottlenecks are going to be there and you're not going to know why, and things are going to move slower, and you're going to be working hard but seem to spin your wheels and lose time. So not a topic for this webinar, but you need at least 9 columns, and we have specific ones that at least you need. Okay. You also need to be using distributed version control. This is the time to convert from your centralized to your distributed version control system if you're still using it. And if you don't have a private build and an integration build that can run on any branch in your version control system, you need to get that in place as well. Those are key. Now, this is what your DevOps pipeline generally is going to look like. We have this poster available. This is a large architectural poster. I know a lot of the text is really small, but it's meant to be printed on 2 foot by 3 foot paper. This is the top third of this architectural poster. We will give you a high resolution PDF for free. Just request it in the chat or send me an email. I'd be happy to get it for you. If you haven't already set up your team for a automated DevOps pipeline for the software that you're working on, this is the structure that you need. Regardless of the mix of tools that you've chosen, a lot of people are using Octopus Deploy, a lot of people are using Azure Pipelines and TeamCity and mixing those two together, and then Redgate for SQL change automation, and InUnit for test suites. Regardless of the mix of tools that you're using, this is the structure, this is the sequence of steps that these activities need to be. And these scenarios in the bottom left in that box, those are the capabilities that need to be a part of your pipeline. And if you're just looking for, maybe you're not doing automated deployments yet, maybe you want to do continuous integration. If you haven't read the book published way back in 2006, if you haven't read the book called Continuous Integration from Addison Wesley, you want to read that book because it defines the 2 types of builds, which are private build and integration build. And it defines the umbrella of what is the practice of continuous integration, which also includes a deployment. Some people are saying, hey, we have CI in place, but all they're doing is automatically triggering a compile. That's not continuous integration. Continuous integration is continuously integrating changes from multiple developers and ensuring that the code base remains stable at all times. Well, the last step to ensure that the code base is still stable is taking the build that is produced and deploying it on some environment and making sure that the software still starts up and didn't completely break. Okay, so if you are not automatically deploying to some environment after the integration build and starting up the application, and at least have an automated smoke test to see if the application still starts up and basically functions, if you're not doing that, then you don't have continuous integration in place just yet, because that's the goal. We have changes from multiple developers. We want to answer the question, is the application still stable, or did we just completely break it? And without deploying it and starting it up, you really can't answer that question. Okay. All right. So we're not going to go into every step of this. We've got other webinars and we've got other online training courses at empower.clearmeasure.com that go deep into all of this. And also the .NET DevOps Bootcamp. Boy, do we go deep into this. So you want to make sure that you have all of these technical parts in place, regardless if your team is distributed or in person. All right, so that is the pipeline structure. We're going to highlight just one thing here, and that is the Kanban board, because work tracking, everyone's in a different place. You're in a video war room, but we need to really know where the work is and what's coming next. And I want to highlight that the development column, the column that a card is in when code is being written, is the 5th step. There are 4 design decisions that happen before we can really have a developer write the code. And the conceptual definition, well, that's the initial requirements. Hey, what are we going to do here? User experience design is how a user is going to use this new software capability. Technical design is where architecture happens, database schema changes, those decisions happen. Design patterns, do we need a new NuGet package? How are we going to do it? If you're the technical lead or the lead engineer for your team or the application architect, a lot of your work is going to be in the technical design column. And that's where you're going to do proofs of concept. Then test design is the 4th column. That is enumerating the steps on how we're going to test something. 1, that proves that we understand what it is. And 2, it defines the scope of what is and what is not in this particular card. And now it's ready for development. For those of you really used to doing Scrum and sprint planning, something is not going to be ready to go into a sprint until it's done with test design, because that is when we actually understand what this thing is and how much implementation we're going to do. Up until then, we're paring down and cutting scope and really defining it. And if we don't make those decisions, we're just going to toss it into the team and then get what we get. So those are important. Now, next steps, a lot of information, a lot of change for a bunch of folks this week. If the team is used to working in the same room and now you're suddenly distributed, get the ebook that we're offering, which goes over the whole technical environment. Go to that Amazon list and make sure you have just the basic equipment, set up your workspace. Go to empower.clearmeasure.com for other courses, webinar archives, and really empower your team. And if you need any help, we love to help you. Whether it's automating deployments or making use of the Azure cloud, we are a software architecture company that empowers our clients' development teams to be self-sufficient, moving fast, delivering quality, and running your systems with confidence. We love to see you succeed. And so even if it's just, hey, help our team get up and running in a distributed fashion, even just that, we want to help you. So thank you so much for your time here. And if there's any questions that come in, then I'd be happy to stay on and answer those questions. I believe that I answered the questions that did come through in line as we are going through. So if there's any questions that come in last minute now, just checking for that. And you've got my email address, send me an email and I'd be happy to do a one-on-one session with you just to chat through some things. So thank you very much for your time, everyone, and stay safe. I hope you have a great week.